Hello, welcome to FootPrint. I am Samuel Atamensa. On this episode of FootPrint, we are talking to somebody who is no stranger to the writing world. I mean, he's defined by what he writes, and he has written at least for the last 5 decades. Yes, 5 decades. Most of you were not born. You only heard. But he's gone by different names through the pen because of the columns and the writings. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll delve straight into some of the books he has written. So just stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Born in Aguna-Duakwa, Ghana, Professor Kwesi Yankah progressed from Winneba Secondary School to the University of Ghana and Indiana University. A scholar and public intellectual, he has authored award-winning books and newspaper columns on contemporary affairs. After retiring from Legon, he led Central University as president and vice-chancellor. Then, in 2017, became Minister of State for Tertiary Education. He tells the rest of the story now.
Welcome back. It's FootPrint, and we have Prof. Kwesi Yankah. Prof, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Prof, you confuse me. How old are you?
Oh my God! Can I suppress that for the time being? I'll tell you at the end of the program.
Okay.
But do you know why?
Let me remain confused.
Don't judge people by their looks.
Well,
you know, these days of technology,
yes,
I could be wearing a mask.
No, it doesn't apply to you. It doesn't apply to you. I mean, judging from how long you've been active with the pen, I try to estimate your age, and I think you're looking very well.
Oh, well, I'm not sure. If you want me to tell the truth, I will be 75 this year.
75 years.
Yes, young.
Blessing. Yes, you look young.
Well,
you have everything intact. I mean, people are 60 and they are struggling.
I'm not sure. Don't take this for granted.
Well, for what I see. But it's good to see you,
good
Prof.
to see you too.
Prof, you know, your whole life has been basically in academia, adult life, I mean, except for a stint in politics. But how did you get into academia?
Well, I got into academia through secondary school to begin with.
Yeah, I mean,
then the university.
I'm asking whether it was a deliberate decision to go there, or, you know, that's what I'm asking.
So, man, the truth is, a time came when I thought I had so much to offer from various directions.
That's correct.
I wasn't sure where I should be. When I was at Winneba, everybody thought I was eventually going to be a national athlete.
Oh, from Winneba Secondary School?
A national athlete. And everybody believed, hey, this guy, watch him. I was
Because you're
flying
running?
in the tracks.
Oh, wow.
Flying, outdoing Swesco, outdoing
Oh, no, that's
Apam
painful.
Secondary School.
The Swesco bit is painful.
But and a time came that people said I had some musical instinct.
Music as well.
Because I had composed a few songs for a few bands when I was young. Then when I reached the university, I realized that I could do academics in itself. I could be an academic, but also be a writer beyond academic writing. And that's where the instinct to move out of the constraints of academia into writing for the world.
Wow.
As a public intellectual.
Oh, lovely. Which year did you leave Winneba Secondary School?
I left Winneba Secondary School to come to the University of Ghana in 1970.
Oh, 1970.
Yes.
Oh, that's where you entered University of Ghana.
That's where I entered University,
Good.
University of
And
Ghana.
you entered At the time you entered, who was the vice chancellor?
The vice chancellor was Kwapon,
Oh, Professor Kwapon.
the big old Kwapon himself was
Oh, wow.
at the helm of affairs. And the registrar, the academic registrar, I must say, was Ebo Daniels.
Oh, okay.
And I was particularly happy that my elder brother, who introduced me to the university, introduced me directly to Ebo Daniel. And I mention Ebo Daniel because he changed my life.
Wow.
Yes.
As a first-year student,
As a first, but much later
had
on,
access to-
had access to him.
wow, that was huge.
When I became a lecturer, and our housing was at Lower Hill, directly opposite was Ebo Daniel. And then Atukwe was 2 steps away, virtually in Writer's Lane. And
Prof.
Ebo grabbed me.
Atuko kind, the poet and the
Yes,
author.
the poet. So I was in very good company as a lane of writers. So it helped to bolster my interest in
Was-
writing.
Okay, Ebo Daniel wasn't teaching.
No,
Okay, okay.
he was a registrar.
And who are some of the other teachers or professors there, lecturers there at the time that you remember?
Oh, at the time in my own department of linguistics, we have Professor Dolphine, Professor Boedi,
Professor Dolphine, the woman.
yeah, the woman.
Yeah.
And English department where I was briefly, Professor Senano, Professor Seche, and a few expatriates,
Okay.
apart from some Ghanaians themselves. But those were much more of academic influences
Yeah.
than the influence of writing. As for writing on campus, my own good friend Kofi Anidoho, who eventually became a lifetime friend, was good company itself. And I mentioned Ebo Daniel also, not just because he was writing, but he had a style which was a little denser than mine. A sense of humor which was a little hard to grasp.
It's fancy too.
It's a fancy.
Well,
Yes. But to tell you the truth, there was Professor Kontopiat Edubuahi. At the time was in the history department, and Professor P.A.V. Ansa, the good old professor of communications. And I'm mentioning this because they had a lot to do with my writing.
so you had Kontompiat, Professor Edubuahi.
Yes.
Yes, and then PAV and Sampava
Santrophy.
Santrophy.
Yes.
So they were all ahead of you.
Yes, and these were columnists within the Legon Observer,
Yeah.
which was all over the place.
At the time, yes.
I didn't know what was happening until one day, sometime in 1979, thereabout, I was walking to my department of linguistics, not too far away from history.
At this time, you were teaching.
I was teaching at the time. And then Edubuahi suddenly burst out about some fireman.
Abonsan Farmer.
Yes. That was the pseudonym I was using at the time during the military regime,
Oh, I see.
where nobody knew who was the author of that column called Abonsam Fireman, which had no byline.
Yeah.
And,
So you were publishing this in the Legon Observer as well?
No.
Or the Catholic Standard?
I was doing that in the Catholic Standard.
The Catholic Standard. We'll come to that, yes.
But at the time that I didn't know that anybody knew who was the author, Edubuahi just mentioned my name, which was interesting because everybody thought Edubuahi was the author.
Oh, okay.
And here was this 27-year-old skinny gentleman writing all that. But let me also add that Edubuahi asked me, Yankah, which school did you attend? I was wondering
I'm waiting for that.
what he meant by which school did you attend?
Yeah.
And I won't tell anybody which school it was. And eventually when I mentioned the school I attended, I said, what?
Oh, you mean Winneba Secondary School? Or you mean...
Winneba Secondary School.
Yes, Winnisec. Yes.
He said the type of English in that column is only students from
France.
Pabotwe.
I I know a new boy will say that.
Infancy students are the only ones that can write your English.
This English. Well, now he knows.
And I told him that to me, Winneba may even be better than Fancy Pimo. And he laughed it away.
Oh, wow.
That's where we
started
becoming friends.
Must have been a very interesting time. So, right from school, you started writing whilst you were a student?
Yes, I started writing while I was at Winneba Secondary School. There's a small magazine that we started called Expo 70 or Expo 69 by sixth formers.
Yeah.
And I started writing.
Yeah.
Then when I went to Saba Hall, Legon, at the University of Ghana, we have the Siren, where every hall of residence had their own hall
when
bulletin.
they post the writings of the...
Originally, it was directly on the notice board.
Notice board, yeah.
But it's evolved gradually into a
newsletter.
weekly newsletter or journal.
Wow.
And I started a column in it and named the column Abonsam Fireman because there was a colleague of us at Unisec whose nickname was Fireman. I just wanted something fanciful, something different that I could use without my name and also to be feared. This Abonsam writer kind of thing. So I started with that, and that had to be anonymous. Because of the military regime.
That's correct.
Writers were being arrested, journalists were being arrested. Edubuahin, an attempt had been made to arrest him. The Legon Observer had been shut down so many times by the military regime. So I hid under that column quietly at that particular time.
So at which point did you change from the Saba Hall Journal?
I changed from the Saba Hall Journal because the editor of the Saba Hall Journal also became the editor of the Catholic Standard.
Oh, wow.
So he told me that, Kwesi, the writing you are doing for us in Siren could be easily transported over to a national newspaper. So I agreed, and I tried one at a time, and in a matter of years, there were long queues for the Catholic Standard because of this particular column that they were reading.
Good. So this is still in the 70s, right?
Still in the 70s.
What was your take at the time, if you recall, on the Union government from Kutu Achampo?
We hated it, and we suffered for it. We suffered. We canvassed a no in the referendum.
How involved were you in the campaign on campus?
At that time in particular, I had started as a lecturer. I'm living in Medina at the time. And the two loudest student unions were the Medina Students' Union, of which I was patron. I was a young lecturer. And the Labadi Students' Union.
Oh, you had community students union like that?
Yes, all over, yes. So that's where we started. So I was against the union government. We fought against the union government, and we canvassed for a no vote. It was dangerous to canvass for the no votes. But things came to a head eventually when Rawlings burst in, June 4th, and we loved the man. Don't forget, at the time of Rawlings, there was no NPP, there was no NPC.
No, far from that.
And the entire student union movement, cross-country, spontaneously jumped in support.
Yes, that's correct.
I was a June 4th man.
Really?
Directly a June 4th man.
As a lecturer at the time?
As a lecturer. Because I organized the students of Medina. A time came when they were calling me Medina Rawlings.
Medina Rawlings?
You cannot believe that. And there are some people around here who knew that. I was leading the students, cleaning gutters, disciplining those who fell out of whatever. And so Rawlings came. We were following him. Let the blood flow. We all did it.
That's good. But so what? It didn't generate any problems for you on campus?
It
The
didn't.
anti-Rawlings people?
Campus, I wasn't that popular. I was more popular in the country than on campus.
Oh, right.
At the time.
Okay, I get that.
But it's within the Medina community, within the student world, that this was their Rawlings.
Okay.
There was he standing
I see
there. He
what
was
you mean.
leading us. And with the long queues for petrol.
Right.
Long queues because of the coup d'etat and Rawlings, through Rawlings, quite a number of past leaders had been killed, by firing squad. From Achampong through Akufu, through Afrifa, and so on and so forth, Utuka, and so on, and so forth. The countries in the neighborhood decided to boycott us, that they were no longer going to supply us with petrol. Nigeria, for example. So that was the situation we had at the time. But we fought the situation and we still wanted blood to flow until we saw the past heads of state at the firing squad being shot by the June 4th.
So when you were saying let the blood flow, which blood were you referring to?
We were not sure what we were talking about. Students.
Until you saw the first blood and then you decided, wait a minute, this blood is too real.
It was just too much.
Yeah.
So Rawlings himself felt it.
What? So let me just take my time. I mean, we've all heard this in bits, Can you recount exactly, because you as an adult, a teacher in the university, watching the space, 79, Rawlings comes up by the 5th of June, he had taken over everything. President Liman, well, not Liman at the time, Akufu was out and in the guard room somewhere, and then you guys took to the streets and you were excited.
It wasn't easy.
Tell me about it.
Rawlings came in 79. My wife was pregnant. And she comes from the Volta region. Akachiabo, on your way to Grant. Unknowingly, we had visited her parents. Well, it hadn't happened then. But we were there in the village Abo when we heard this voice roaring. We had taken over power and given orders to the military, particularly the senior officers, to start submitting themselves to the lower ranks and so on and so forth. So we came out, we were standing by the wayside, waiting for transportation from Denun, that direction to Accra. No car was coming, no car was. So eventually, we saw a rickety vehicle coming all the way, the Watonchin type.
Yes, Watonchin, yes.
And a poor lady, she got on board. And I was squeezed somewhere close to, there were about 2 or 3 of us at the front. Because no cars were moving, so the few cars moving were congested with passengers. So we were transported. You met not a single vehicle on the road.
Wow.
So we came over to Tema Station in Accra. That's where we stopped. The place was full of soldiers in red armed bands all over. So this lady, we're looking for Medina a vehicle to join from Tema Station.
This is near the Rex Cinema, right?
No, near where you did your fair.
Yeah, Rex Cinema.
Is that the Rex Cinema?
Yeah.
Okay.
Near Rex
At Tema
Cinema.
Station?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know Rex Cinema was there.
Oh, Rex Cinema from Old Parliament coming
Oh,
down.
okay. I see.
From our center coming down.
I see. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, that angle, yes.
Yeah.
Electricity Corporation area.
That's correct.
So we got down and now looking for a vehicle to bring us to Medina. One vehicle came and there was a scramble. Because you wanted to be home by the time the
curfew.
Curfew starts. The curfew was at 6 o'clock.
It started at 6. It started at 6 o'clock.
So we are
Charlie, we suffer.
there. We suffered though.
6 o'clock,
And then
you
here
should be
was
locked
a
in your room.
pregnant woman.
Ooh.
And then everybody got in. And I couldn't have left my wife and gotten in without her. So both of us stood outside until apparently their planquet had seen her plight.
Wow.
So the planquet came and said, they are no longer going. So everybody please come out. We have changed our route.
It's revolution time.
Yes. Not knowing she wanted to pave the way for mommy to be comfortably seated.
Before the others.
Yes.
Wow.
So as soon as everybody got off, just he had mommy's hand, took her to inside either the front or somewhere. As soon as he had gotten seated and I had gotten seated, I said, Obi Amra. So everybody else came, giddy, 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 were comfortably seated. When we reached Medina, the whole place was quiet.
What time would this be in the evening?
7:30 thereabouts. Place was.
Everybody was in their rooms.
Yes. So quietly, I held her hand, and we went to where we lived in Medina, the house of a military officer. Yes, who didn't know my political sensitivity.
Yeah.
But we lived there.
Yes.
You know. And then the next day, the newspapers started coming, and all over the place, the place was completely quiet. People feared to step the town. Everybody kept to themselves, and that's where the revolution started. And all the orders: meet me at Nicholson Stadium. The following should meet me at Nicholson Stadium, and so that's where the whole thing started.
Wow. Yes. People, we are having a chat with Professor Kwesi Yankah, recounting his own experiences as a lecturer, young lecturer in the University of Ghana, and also living through the first appearance of Jerry Rawlings in June of 1979. I would still want to have his own take on the executions and how he saw them before we get into the real meat of our conversation. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
Introducing Betway's Bet Influencer, a groundbreaking feature where you can make money by just sharing codes. He just needs to share his codes and make money. The more his codes are used, the more money he makes. Oh yes, so what are you waiting for? Anyone can be a bet influencer. Share your codes and make money. Bet Influencer, another world first from Betway.
This advert has been approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Betway, get way more.
Welcome back. This is Footprint with Professor Kwesi Yankah. Prof, your brother is Kojo Yankah. Is he the younger or the elder brother?
It's my elder brother.
Is your elder brother? He is also as fit, as looking very well. You are from the central region?
Yeah, from the central region.
You speak Fanti?
Yes, because I went to secondary school in Winneba.
But we know people, they don't speak Fanti. Okay, so Aguna, meaning that you are from the Aguna Swedru system.
Yes,
where in particular?
Aguna Duakwa.
Duakwa.
On your way from Swedru to Odan, about 6 miles away.
Okay, that's across the road, right?
Across the road.
Across the road, okay.
Takes you to Duakwa. From Duakwa, you're going to Sabah.
Oh, lovely.
And
Nyakrum too is in that system.
is in the enclave. Yeah, has access.
But did you live there?
No, never lived there.
Where did you grow up?
The places that people grew up, if they were children of teachers.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
They transfer you.
Yes, Atim Shiem. Shiem is near Crosso. Atim Osinasi near Samankase.
Osinasi
from
Asamai to Akwetia, that road, right?
Then a big one, Winneba. Big because it took over my life.
Oh, wow.
But from Winneba, where I could have sat for the common entrance and gone to secondary school, old man was transferred to Achimatiase. Ewisa Atiase. So a little bit of life here and there, mostly in the eastern region and central region.
Yes. So you speak Achim Kasa? Or you are
I
still...
wouldn't say I speak one type of Chi or the other. I don't know whether it's distinctively Achim or distinctively Asante.
Well, I would know if you spoke.
Okay. It's a mix. Yeah.
Really?
But I speak Chi.
Oh, right.
But Aguna, when I meet in Aguna, I feel I'm in heaven.
Really? I went to Sweden Secondary School. Not many people spoke Aguna there. Everybody, about 50% of them spoke Ga anyway.
I am sentimentally attached to wherever I was born.
Okay.
The umbilical foundations are the best.
At times it shows in your writings.
Yes. And when people would normally say, they come from Swedru instead of Diakwa. I said, no, I don't come from Swedru. I come from Diakwa.
Okay.
Little known.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud of my genesis in the beginning.
What's Diakwa known for again?
Oh my God.
Cocoa?
They are mostly farmers, but distinctively, the very first chief of Diakwa, Nana Mwakwa the first, started a national school, which was the first privately owned national school in the Gold Coast.
Oh, right.
In 1929. The very first.
Okay.
So Diakwa was a seat.
Was it started in Biakwa?
In Diakwa there.
Wow.
The relics are there.
Lovely.
The school is still there, not in the same
Truth
shape.
is, for a very long time, I used to confuse Diakwa with Brakwa.
Brakwa is, yes.
Bremain Brakwa.
Bremain Brakwa.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Bremain Brakwa.
Diakwa is there, distinctively different. So it's known for education, the genesis of education, free education, sponsored by a private individual.
Wow.
And then the very first place in the Gold Coast where a privately owned generator, the electrical generator, was made available around the same time by the same chief. But Diakwa was known for those two
Oh, then
things.
Diakwa has a lot of firsts.
Yes, a lot of
Now
firsts.
you know. Now, back to Legon. Young lecturer, writing, publishing, and all that. Remember some of the lecturer friends you had there who later also became popular at the national level?
Lecturer friends at the time, I wouldn't...
Maybe senior to you?
Yes,
or,
senior to me, yes. There were the Chikates were there.
That's Chachu.
Chatu Chikata
Okay.
was
Well,
there.
a number of Chikates there.
Oh, yes, the two of them, Fui
Fui.
was around there at the time. But also, interestingly, people like Atwaston, Fanti,
No, I know him very
very, very, very active
Yeah.
in sports and in government. He went to the PNDC.
Was he a lecturer too?
No, he wasn't a lecturer at the time.
As in a
But
student.
yes, he was a
Okay,
But
yeah.
as far as lecturers were concerned, Kwame Kakari was right there living across, and one of the very active socialists,
Yes.
whose spirits were ignited by the presence of Rawlings.
Thank you.
Their man had come. But also you had the conservative Democrats,
Yeah.
the PABNCs.
Yeah.
And Edubuahe in particular, I'm glad I experienced many of the interesting encounters that he had. Edubuahe in 1978, at the time we were fighting the union government and you dared not talk, scheduled a lecture to be given at the Accra Community Center. At the time, the heat was on for union government, and everybody was expected to comply. The professionals said no to union government at the time. The teachers said no, the medical officers and so on and so forth, the engineers. Edubuahe was one of these, and the lecture was scheduled to take place at the Community Center in Accra. Is it still there?
No.
On the high streets?
No, near the art center.
Near the art center.
No. Yeah.
And I made sure I was at every lecture
By
that was going to
Edubuahe.
be given by Edubuahe. I went there early enough. And then suddenly came
The military
this
guys.
macho, not military.
Oh, much guys.
The policemen were there. No. Then this heavy-shouldered, macho men, some of whom came from Legon. I knew some of them. And I didn't know that overnight they could change into just thugs. And suddenly came 5 or 6 Makola women occupying the front row of the lecture. Makola women had a talk. No, already. So the Dubois was there, seated, 3 or 4 of them. Just minutes into the event, the Makola women started shouting in Ghana, insulting him all over. Oh yes, then immediately the thugs, the macho boys, came from all over. Apparently they had surrounded the place. They charged on the stage and overturned the high table. Whew. Simons, let me say, come and see speed. And the interesting thing, the police were there. I think it was orchestrated. It was choreography.
Yeah.
It had been choreographed. The police were there, arms folded. So everybody disappeared from the scene.
Including Edubois himself.
So that was the first major event that was cut. No, it never came on. It was curtailed by the military. Then came 1987. 1987. Don't forget, at that time it was the PNDC government.
Yeah.
When General Kwenu was the commander of the armed forces. Edubois scheduled yet another talk, this time on the platform of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, the Danko Memorial Series. He had scheduled a 3-part lecture. Once again, the place was jammed because it was not common to have, lecturers or politicians risk their lives to give a talk against the government. My God, that is where he gave his famous lecture that was also called the single lecture that broke the culture of silence. After that lecture, which was full of incidents, everybody then started speaking freely in town. But the lecture itself ended in
chaos.
I wouldn't say chaos, but people felt so uneasy. There could have been chaos because General Kwenu was right sitting on the front row at a lecture that was against the government in a revolutionary regime.
General Arnold Kwenu came to sit there.
Buffalo Soldier was there.
Jesus Christ.
So when Edubois, before Edubois reached his final paragraph, Arnold was itching to talk. But academic lectures that were memorial lectures would normally not allow questions or answers or rejoinders from the floor. Kwenu was raising his hand. The chairman, Ivan Samfum, didn't call him immediately, but he thought twice that this is the general officer commanding the armed forces. What right do I have to stop him?
Refuse him, yeah.
Yes, expressing himself, free speech. So he decided that he would allow him to speak. That's where he buffaloed his way to the stage. Boom, 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 boom. And he rebutted many of the things that Edubois had said. And Edubois, at the end of the speech, had said that I am asking the government to do the following, or in the words of James Baldwin, there will be fire next time. This is what Arnold Kwenu responded to. He came and said there will not be any fire, there will be conflagration. There will be an inferno. People responded just the way you are responding, hey, all over the place. So we dispersed in tension. People were tensed up. What is going to happen next? So the next day or two, I went to visit Edubois. His neck was in a POP. I said, does this neck brace have anything to do with the lecture you gave? Fortunately,
no.
It wasn't from the soldiers.
Okay.
So there were quite a number of incidents involving those on campus there with me, and also P.V. Ansan, who was the editor of the Legon Observer at various times of the life of the. So yes, there were a number of people who ended up in politics big time, and at that time to a number of expatriates who were quietly interested in what was happening but dared not come up. Yes.
Now, I'll go back to our 1979 stories, and more, and I'm doing this within the context that you as a young lecturer supported the, if you like, the whole revolution idea of 1979.
Yeah.
You know, walking through, what did you make of the whole execution? How did you, you know, so we had the likes of course, Kutu Achampong was an easy target for them.
Yes.
FWK Akufu went, Kote went, Feli went, Utuka went.
Yeah. It was gruesome.
Odate Wellington was earlier. And there were about, how many?
Eventually about 8.
8?
Eventually. But at various times.
Did you witness any of them?
No. We did not go all over to town to the firing squad toward that. But
oh no, people went.
Yes, they did. But
People
many
lined
people
up.
saw it from the TV, 7 o'clock news.
Oh yeah.
They were not necessarily there watching.
But there were, you know, from the Peshi Lagoon.
Yes.
People from La, people from Teshi, and at the time, nobody really lived in the Chado area. It was all forest. But people walked from Nungwa through the forest to come and stand by the roadside.
They were excited.
Yes.
But when we saw the scenario on television, you know, those tied to the stakes, slumping one at a time, slumping, the story changed. For the first time, we had seen the blood we were yelling for. It wasn't easy. So immediately people started, please.
So they carry them individually?
Individually, they were all lined up on the stakes. Pow.
But I thought Kutu Achampong's own was done differently.
I'm talking about the first 3.
Yeah.
The first 2, yes. Pow. Pow. That was too much.
Boachi was there. Vice must
I think the first 2 was Achampong and Utuka or so. The rest came at various times, you know. And I think some came in excess because we had reached a point where things were getting out of hand. And Jerry himself, almost on his feet, nearly regretted starting the whole thing. Because suddenly he developed cold feet. He did not want to continue any more of the killings. Because I'm sure he himself underrated it. And the students had underrated it. It was the voice from the editor of the graphic, this Betohine, who wrote an editorial against the killings.
Oh, wow.
And the students turned their attention and wrath on this Betohine. A whole demonstration of students directly to the graphic.
Because she was against the killing.
Because she was against the killing.
So young students who didn't know much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that was a single voice, and she was a heroine, clearly. That came up and said, no, enough is enough of the killings. And for many of the rest, we all thought, no, we wanted blood, but we didn't know.
Not this one. I mean, these are on account the people who were shot through firing squad, and there were the people who got missing.
Yes. No, that had nothing to do with those who disappeared in various ways. Later on, sometime in the late 90s, I started interviewing the orphans of June 4th. Children of the Kotes, of the Kutu Achampongs, name them, of the Utukas. And, you know, some of them eventually came to Legon. Some of them came to Legon and were itching to go back to the army or to go to the army to revenge.
Wow.
Many of them, for one reason or the other, fortunately or unfortunately, they were not allowed to, enter the military at the time.
That's so sad, eh?
It was too much. I've published some of the statements made by the orphans of June 4th. I published
You have
this
it in a book or one of your write-ups?
It's in one of the write-ups, so maybe it's coming.
Because we have the Utukas still around.
Yes, my God.
We have the Kotes, Minerva, Bob, they are all still around.
Oh, yes.
Have,
some of them spoke to...
Elizabeth Utuka.
Some of them ended up at the University of Ghana.
Yeah.
And I was the lecturer or senior member in charge of Radio Universe.
Oh, okay.
So many of them, were around Radio Universe at the time. I took the opportunity to interview them. A champion's daughter, very, very vocal. I forgot her name. Sewa Champion or something.
Yeah.
So I lined them up and they poured out their grief, what happened on June 4th, to their parents and the aftermath of all that. And I think at that time they were disturbed by the fact that the country was still celebrating June 4th.
Yeah.
With all that,
well, we didn't know much.
with all the blood, you are still celebrating.
We always
June
needed
4th.
something to celebrate without understanding what
That's
it meant.
And it was terrible. That they thought it was one big mistake that the Ghana government did was allow the continued celebration of June 4th in its constitutional democracy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it was constitutional but controlled by the author of June 4th.
Okay.
So what were we expecting?
But they thought that this we could use the occasion to unite Ghana.
That's if we had repented. We never repented. We pretended. Look, we are still speaking with Professor Kwesi Yankah and his footprint. I'm Samuel Atamensa. We'll take a short break. But when we come back, we will talk about something called woes of a patriot.
Oh my God.
And then it will take us into other ones.
Do you want a healthy smile?
Searching for a family-friendly dental practice? Hi, I'm Tanya from Bethel Dental Clinic, Ghana. People do not always want to go see the dentist because that visit is oftentimes associated with noise, pain, and a hard, cold environment. To encourage everyone in the family to look forward to a dental visit, I will advise you that you put some thought in selecting a family-friendly dental practice. It should have a warm, welcoming atmosphere for both adults and children. A comfortable reception with good, comfortable chairs, nice music, some good beverages and cold water, good TV programs, toys, books, and even a game console for the children. Because your family smile matters, please make time in selecting your dental clinic so that everyone in your home will be happy to see the dentist.
In a fast-growing urban environment like Accra, safety should not be too far-reaching. It should be as easy as ABC. Hear the real stories from those who now feel safe like never before with Response 1.
We were held at gunpoint in our own home, and they got away with it.
We didn't have Response 1 back then. That was the most terrifying experience of our lives.
But after that, we subscribed to Response 1 to ensure that never happens again. The last time the hoodlums tried, we had installed Response 1 monitored alarm system. Their response team arrived, followed by the police, to ensure we are safe.
Don't wait for tragedy to strike. Protect your home with Response 1's monitored alarm system and our theft protection guarantee. Immediate response, real protection. Response 1, stay connected, stay protected.
Welcome back. This is Footprints, and I have Professor Kwesi Yankah, the man from Duakwa. You know Duakwa? Yeah, Duakwa. They have a lot of cassava there. Prof, you have been writing, I mean, from the Siren of Sabbath Hall to the Catholic Standard, and you did some contribution to the Legon Observer at some point, right?
No.
You didn't write for the Observer?
No.
Okay, but at least for the Catholic Standard, you were very loud.
Weekly.
And you wrote under the name
Fireman.
Obonsam Fireman. Obonsam Fireman. Shit, that's a wicked name, man. And you were excited by the fact that people didn't know you were the author of this column. What were some of the things you were addressing with Obunsan Fireman?
The political situation, allegorizing the story.
Yeah.
Giving nicknames to people rather than their real name.
That's correct.
And narrating a story. At the end of the day, people knew who I was talking of, the various characters.
That's correct. That's correct.
It was the flow of the story, of the events from 1977 to 1980.
Oh, right.
And through June 4th, 79.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. Good. Okay, so fast forward, you come to secure a column in the, is it Daily Graphic or Mirror? Mirror, Woes of a Patriot. And I remember as students, in fact, for me, it was the only reason I'll buy the Mirror. That's the only reason I'll buy the Mirror. And so if there were any occasions that you didn't write, then it was to a disappointment. Yeah, Woes of a Patriot. Where did you get the name from?
Samens, I did not create the names. The name itself emerged from the circumstances. I had just returned in 1986 from my doctoral work at Indiana in the USA. And whereas I thought it was going to take me a day or two to clear my stuff at the harbor in Tema, it took me more than a week. The bureaucracy was so bad, and the stealing of car parts, including my own, that I eventually, took over. Then I met a close friend of ours at the time, Adjo Ebuafari. And I was narrating to her what I had gone through. She said, Kwesi, this story you are narrating to me is interesting enough. Why don't you write a story for the Mirror, where she was? I said, why not? She was. I said, why not? So I sat and wrote a 3 of what happened at the port. Submitted it. What title should I give to this? I said, this is a story recounting the trouble that one goes through when one has volunteered to return home to serve his motherland. So it could as well have been a patriot, but patriot was too common. I wanted to be creative, and I blended the name Kwesi and
Patriot.
And became Patriot. So it was, the first article was Home Sweet Home, Woes of a Patriot.
Wow.
I submitted the first story. They were so tickled. The editorial of Mirror said, can you give us another one? Continue. And I continued. And then next week, and then it became a weekly affair. They accepted it as part of their regime. And I became a columnist when I wasn't expecting to continue from Fireman. I had just returned. So not knowing it was becoming eventually a whole universe.
Wow.
Where even where I travel outside the country, the editor wanted me to write. Chicago, I was writing. Stanford, I was writing. California, I was writing. And it became an obsession. And I didn't want to disappoint my fans. And secondly, if I missed any week, even when I was traveling, people thought I had been arrested. Because at that time, people didn't trust the NDC.
PNDC.
PNDC.
Yes.
You are right. At the time, PNDC. Totobi Kwachi, very, very nice. Some of them are very, very good friends, but they didn't trust the system. Because
was Totobi Kwachi in charge at that time?
You'll be surprised. He was the Minister for Information. And do you know what? He gave me my very first Writers Award. 1987 declared my column the column of the year. A column that was really hitting them. It was very clever, but
I thought it was Fanti to Fanti at the time.
But Totobi gave me an award.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised. He was smart.
Wow.
So that's how things happened. And every year I was writing. And eventually, 96, the Ghana Journalists Association gave me special honors at the time of Cabral.
Yeah.
That I had written the longest running column in the history of Ghanaian journalism. Special.
So Woes started which year?
86.
Oh, 86.
Yes.
All the way through 96, you are still writing.
96, my 10th anniversary, is when they gave me the award. Unfortunately, during, I was also at the same time launching 2 books emerging from my writings. There was a public incident I couldn't handle. I couldn't narrate fully the story. And unfortunately, I didn't know I was a woman. I broke down.
Wow.
When narrating the tale of the woes.
What's the name again? The tale of what?
Of my woes.
Oh, your woes. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So
yeah.
It was one single incident that told you that the column had really entered my heart. Not just my family, but certain parts of the body that were so precious that you, just like Rollins may react to June 4th, maybe, it became a spiritual obsession to me. So I'd done it for 10 years, and DJ said, please, come over for. I went for the award. I thought that was the end, and other newspapers started calling me to continue. So I moved on to Public Agenda by De Grey.
Kojo Graham.
Graham.
Yao
Graham.
Yao Graham, sorry.
And I also did it for a number of years for them, and then another newspaper and one after the other. So Woes was a whole universe, because this was PNDC, not quite constitutional democracy, but there was that transition in 1991 to 1992. In 92, when constitutional democracy was restored, I still had to continue because people still, they wouldn't let you rest. And ask me how much I was earning for,
there was
for one
no money. There was no money at the time. But I mean, look, I think it was the channel, a decent channel of expression.
I think so.
On behalf of the populace. I mean, we couldn't speak. And so you spoke through the pen, and we aligned, we associated with it. So you did such a marvelous work.
It was marvelous, but people didn't know what was happening inside me.
Tell me.
I mean, for a family, a young family, with your wife teaching at the Burma camp, the Burma camp school complex.
That's where your wife taught.
That's why she was teaching at the time. At the time I was writing. It wasn't funny.
Well, now I can laugh.
I would be in the classroom in Legon, and 10 o'clock, I normally would drop her off at 7:38. Maybe sometimes she found her way back home on her own. But this time at 10, she's looking for me. Because almost every 3 months, an attempted coup, or things that sounded like a coup. Pa, 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 pa. And once again, when you're pregnant again, she had to quickly find a way out and look for the nearest taxi or trotro and come. It wasn't easy. But apart from that, I think what made it more terrible were the intrigues. And I don't think people who were targeting writers who were critical of government would hold guns and go to them and shoot them. I don't think it was as simple as that.
But your wife then must have gone through...
That was terrible. You know, I think the worst episode was what we called an attempted abduction. When I had traveled.
They attempted to abduct her?
That's our interpretation.
Of course.
At the time I had traveled, I was in California, one of the fellowships. And then, you know, I heard the story that somebody unknown to her had visited there, had gone home, at Legon, and persuaded her that, or tried to convince her that we know your husband. We know him. And we know the government doesn't like him. They're angry with the husband. But you know what? We can help you. There is a spiritualist in Asylum Down whom we are going to take you to, you know, to give you some spiritual food to eat and pray for you and blah, 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 blah. Of course, she wouldn't go, you know, with him. I think he came for the second time. Hell bent on taking her to Asylum Down. Fortunately, on the second visit, a close friend of mine who went to Swesco, Joe Apia.
Dr. Joe Apia, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Apia.
Joe Apia, a friend of mine, he's from Diakwa, was visiting her.
Yeah.
So Joe Apia happened to know the gentleman, confronted him, and that was the end of the story. But when I was narrating this during my 10th anniversary, I broke down.
Wow, of course.
So the IGP at the time, I've forgotten who it was, sent the CID to come and get my full story so that they will start a prosecution. They will look for, you know. So they came for my story in Lagos and narrated it to them. And then when the case was taken to the Attorney General's office, the Attorney General at the time said there was not enough evidence. And there were so many such. Harassment upon harassment. Today you are there, somebody's come to check your TV license fees. Which is fine. There's nothing wrong. You know, you be getting attacks here and there. UTAG, a big story, Kwesi Yankah betrays the UTAG in you know, NDC or PNDC newspapers.
Yeah.
You go through it and there's nothing. They just want to intimidate you.
That's correct.
So there were so many such.
But I feel sorry that your wife had to go through that, man.
But
I mean, for the younger people, it's always important to put it in context. Now, anytime there was a coup attempt, it's you know, disrupts something. And between 81, or was it 82 and 93, for Jerry Rawlings, there were at least 19 coup attempts.
Wow. But I say that, I mean, the scariest was when my wife and I were having a beer somewhere. We were encountered by a plainclothes military who said there had been a meeting at Burma camp where a big man in government was holding an article that I had written and telling the officers, if you don't do it, I will.
If you don't do what?
That's how he put it. Please look at this article written by so and so. If you don't do it, I will. And then immediately the gentleman told us that, he said, don't worry, we are behind you. Apparently it was a military officer who was part of the meeting and had seen me there and was coming to tell me the truth that this is what is happening, but you don't worry. We soldiers, I didn't know. But I think that was the farthest things went.
Wow. So
it wasn't that easy.
Just an divine intervention, as we say. Prof, thank you very much. It's been wonderful walking through the journey of Professor Kwesi Yankah, and we will have another episode of this program. Thanks for joining us. I'm Samuel Atamensa. You've been watching FootPrints. Goodbye.